Namaste. My name is Sachin with Namaste Ayurveda, and today we're going to be having an interview with an amazing individual in the Ayurveda community. And the topic that we'll be speaking about today is going to be on Ayurveda and the fall transition for mental health and hygiene. So, before getting started, we'd like to give acknowledgement to the fact that we're standing on traditional territories of the Blackfoot and the people of the Treaty 7 region, which includes the Siksika, Pikainai, Kainai, Tsuut'ina, and Stoney Nakoda First Nations. The city of Calgary is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. I'd like to introduce to you Jaisri Lambert, who is an innovative healer, Ayurvedic doctor who resides in Vancouver, British Columbia, is the founder of the Care Foundation for Canada Ayurveda Research and Education. She also sits on the board of advisors for the Ayurvedic Association of Canada. And aside from that, she's been for over 30 years involved in Ayurvedic healing, from working with First Nations to the communities abroad and in North America, running retreats, supporting and helping this divine practice reach others for the betterment of their healing. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Jaisri. Welcome, Jaisri. How are you? Namaste.
Namaste. Very lovely to be here at your kind invitation, Sachin.
You're welcome. Well, I thought it would be really nice to have a discussion today. And the discussion, I thought that would be really important, as it's now the 1st of November. It's the 2nd November, actually. And we're transitioning in Calgary, Alberta, which is right next door to you, into fall. But it goes from fall right into winter, and then it automatically seems like a beautiful fall day. The air is warm, and then the next week it will be minus 15. We'll have 25 centimeters of snow on the ground, and it goes back and forth. So I felt this would be a beautiful little discussion for everyone around Ayurveda and the transition of our season of fall to winter. And really looking at this transition, of course, of how mental health and hygiene are in transition during these times we're in. So I just first of all wanted to talk about, when we look at what happens when our seasons transition and shift, and when the seasons shift, when we're going from fall to winter, what's happening there, and how is that affecting our human body systems? Because it seems that when we shift from a fall to winter season, everybody's getting sick. Everybody's getting a little more anxiety, a little worried. People's skins tending to get drier. We're shifting our diets. Our emotions are changing. So on that note, I'd like to pass it off to you and see if you have anything to say on that.
Of course, and this is a lovely topic today. Uh, this transition from fall to winter, and what happens physically, psychologically, spiritually. It is a time of an inward journey. So we're very extroverted during the summer months. We've just finished harvest, or almost, on the West Coast, because there's still some plants that can be harvested on into the colder weeks ahead. But definitely the preparation for winter is an inward journey. We're storing away root crops. We're introverting our attention. We're getting ready to close down, so when the winds blow and the snows come, we're ready, we're comfortable, we're safe, and we're not subject to the otherwise dangers of a change of season. You know, a change of season in Ayurveda being the world's oldest holistic medical science, any change is likened to an intersection, and therefore it has some inherent danger. And because of that, there is a caution. One has to be more cautious at the change of season as one is at an intersection. You simply don't proceed through, you stop, you observe, you see what are the dangers coming from which direction, and you make your plan accordingly so that you're safely transitioning that intersection, that place of change. So we do have to pay attention to not only outer temperatures is a big thing. You know, humans, we don't have a huge range of temperature. If we look at the centigrade scale, 0 to 100, freezing to boiling, you know, we're not very comfortable at the edges of those extremes. We like to be in the 70, 80, and so we create our ambient indoor atmospheres to be conducive for that. So that's one thing, is our relationship with the weather. Um, Weather can be cloudy, and it can bring a seasonal affective disorder. Sad. Seasonal affective disorder is when the photons from the sun are diminishing in the transiting sky, not only by the angle from the horizon, which becomes lower at these latitudes, but also becomes shorter. So, sun exposure being shorter, now the photons entering the pupil and converting light to the brain for illumination, a feeling of happiness, levity, joy, effervescence, for that feeling of warmth and radiance of the sun. There are less of these particles entering the pupil. Therefore, the brain is affected, can be affected. But there are many, many remedies that we can apply to these changing conditions. First thing is to notice that they're happening and that we have to adapt. Mostly we're adapting in an inward direction.
I really like how you talk about how the photons, even of the different kinds of temperatures, actually affect our pupils. And I'm really reminded in when I think about, like, when we say dincharya, or what's really said about in normal terms, like on Instagram, Facebook, social media. You'll see yoga teachers, wellness practitioners talking about self-care. So when I think of eyes, and if there's temperatures and if our eyes are taking those kind of photons, how splashing cold water on your eyes in the morning is important. Also the use of oils, and now oils going onto in our eyes as well when we do practices with ghee, or oil inside our nostrils, oil inside our ears, oils inside a lot of orifices to create a lubricating effect during a colder transitional season where we're going from more heating, which happens being pitta, to more of a vata related season, which is colder, drier, in the season, say, of Alberta, where it's more drier out here inherently by our climate.
Yes, indeed. And therefore, because of the dryness, no doubt these oleating and even hydrating measures can be helpful. So make sure the substances are warm body temperature, and make sure that your operations are suitable for you. For example, your eyes. Eye care. No doubt our daily routine, morning routine, is very important for maintaining eye health throughout life. There are certain eye drops, collyriums, certain eye baths that can be used for different conditions and now for fall season. We need these measures to not to be cooling. They can be neutral in thermal effect, or they can be warming in thermal effect. And for the eyes, not too much, because eyes are already dominated by pitta dosha, ears by vata dosha, mouth by kapha dosha. So each of them already has particular functional affinities, and therefore we could use, say, ghee in the eye for an eye drop or eye bath. We might use castor oil, depending on the conditions in the eye. Similarly, for the ears, we might use vacha oil for the ears, which is warming, or sesame oil for the ears to keep them nice and warm and keep their immunity well protected from cold influence, which dominates now until pretty much April.
Yeah, pretty much April. One thing also I wanted to say on that note, and I just want to say ASAP essential how important it is to have oil in these parts of our bodies, our eyes, ghee, and our our nose, our ears. But also when I think about what Dr. Sabota said on the eyes, since now everyone's looking at screens or at home more, is the absence of light, and especially the light in the blue spectrum, and how our body knows that it's night then. And if our body doesn't know that it's night, then there's no melatonin being released, and health problems can multiply. Some studies I've heard have said that blue light contributes to cancer, diabetes, and obesity rates. So I'm really, aside from, now I know that Dr. Sabota said it's good to wear protective red lenses of some kind of color when you're looking at screens a lot. I really, do you feel that this is a reason why us doing eye care would be like really essential?
Well, surely eyes are our principal organ. It's said that we process anywhere from 80 to 85% of our experience through our eyes.
Yeah,
So, no doubt it is critical that they remain healthy, happy right from childhood through their adult years on into old age. So, definitely oils play a role. Oils that enter through the general circulation via the skin and distribute their particles equally to the various dhatus or tissues, one of them being eyeballs, part of Maja Dhatu, the second to deepest tissue, which has kinship with the endocrine system in the Ayurveda anatomy and physiology. So these are very important psychobiological functions. And yes, the trigger to many of them is what we see and how we see it. So there is an interaction between what we see and what we feel about it. This is a response to memory. So, no doubt, every time winter comes around and we tend to feel isolated, this can lead to depression, different types of depression.
agreed, agreed. And on that note, when you were talking about the Maja Dhatu, I think for those people out there who don't know really what the Dhatus are, they're basically building blocks of the human body in Ayurveda when we look at it. So, for example, when we think about plasma, which is rasa, rakta, which is blood, mamsa, which is muscles. Of course, there's kandras around that too, but the meda, which is fat, asti, which is bone, maja, which is bone marrow, and shukra, which is reproductive fluid or semen. So these are these building blocks of the human body. Going back to the one that Jaisri has been speaking about, the maja dhatu, which is the bone marrow, and how the eyes are a part of that. One thing I did want to talk with you about that, Jaisri, is right now, one thing that we see on social media a lot is people who are talking about having more bone marrow, drinking bone broths, collagen, supplements as well. And sometimes I feel that we're employing that you should just, it's like the fast food thing, will take a lot of this tea tree oil or this eucalyptus or this omega oil, and it's going to solve all the issues. And I see that happening with things like bone marrow. But the importance of bone marrow, bringing it to the eyes, and it's important also within food, I think is an important one to address as well, how that can have an effect for our eye health too. If you have any comments on that.
It's interesting that Ayurveda has given us the Dravya Gunya, the science of the properties of substances. So that includes our body substances and also other substances that may be used as food or otherwise used medicinally. So this Dravya Gunya, the properties of substances, yes, we have to see the properties that we're dealing with environmentally, as well as the properties of the apparatus that we're perceiving with, in this case, eyes, and also the properties of the substances. So ghee is permitted At times, trifle tea may be permitted in the eyes at times. Also, practices such as ghee lamp gazing, it's said that seeing that particular color, the color of the ghee flame, which is said to be, according to my teacher, Dr. Ladd, also Dr. Svoboda's teacher, is that ghee is the color of pure consciousness. And when we meditate on the flame of the ghee lamp, that produces an aura which then becomes immune, strengthens immunity to disease, such as external disease, as well as strengthens the individual cells of the tissues, let's say eyeballs, so that they remain healthy, happy. In other words, those eyes that are misused for seeing things critically or seeing the how would I say, the fault. You know, these skills are useful, but let us see the soul, let us see the heart. If we can put this as priority in our vision, then are our organs becoming healthier simply because of that, regardless of what substances are in our day-to-day program. But is this a dominant influence to how we see? Is how we regard our eyes, how we govern our eyes, which of course is going to inform our opinions and therefore our choices. How easily can we adapt? Adapt to seasonal change, adapt to historical change, adapt to uh, sudden and long-term changes.
Definitely. And I think that we're coming across a lot of long-term changes with the way, with lockdowns happening, and with everyone being on a cell phone 24/7. It just really reminds me, if a conscious set could be put in place, and actually this is a challenge for me, how can we have people doing more eye exercises but nourishing these, I think yoni mudra is a really good one for that. Tratka, as you said, in yoga as well, because since so such a mass majority of people doing yoga, that eye gazing would really set the bar for that, as you said, with eye gazing with just not a candle. You can with a candle, but how ghee is so much more potent, and it holds a sense of consciousness. Now, for people out there who don't know, so how do I take ghee, and what do I do if I want to work with it? All really you do is you take like a cotton swab ball, you dip it in some clarified butter, and you make a little ball, and you make a little wick on it, and then you can put it just inside like a cup, even like a shell, preferred like in a brass altar, and then you can light it, and it will actually burn out. So you can actually look at it right till it burns out. So I think that's a really uh, economical, inexpensive way that people can access these things.
Very beautiful. The key thing for this Trataka, the ghee lamp gazing, is to have it at arm's length and at eye level, because that particular point for the eyes to focus on the ghee flame will bring the best results. Timing wise, also just before sunrise, facing eastward. If your ghee candle does face east, truly it will bring more subtle benefits.
And I think one thing that's good that you brought up, how eye gazing when the sun rises. So, for example, in Calgary, Alberta, our sun arises here right now. Now that we've changed at, well, after this time change, at about 7 a.m. exactly. So at 7:10 a.m. and it rises. So just before that time, if people have, and where anyone in the world, look at the way when your sun is coming up and before it. I think this is a really good point to put in there. On the note of eye gazing, and I think one really good thing that you brought up too is the how this can be something that's very inclusive to all. It is something that can be accessed by all, be if you're in a place where you can access it or you really can. So I think this discussion of having access to these tools is so important as mental health issues arise and emotions are becoming a little more heightened with seasonal disorders. So I think this is definitely a great one. On the note of ghee, also, I know that a lot of our listeners out there will be like, I'm not going to put clarified butter in these eyes or trifala. What are you talking about? Now, I'm trying to break the ice on this for those who find that a little bit harder to comprehend. And I've done it myself. I love it. I think it's great. And I think I'm just really feeling when we're looking at screens all the time, how our eyes are actually getting affected by that light, and we're losing the strength.
True. So we are wise to limit maximum 2.5 hours a day, 1/10 of the day. That would be the ideal maximum. But anything less than that is great too. But if we have to engage, and most of us do
Yeah.
nowadays, and this is our method now. So without this medium, we really don't have any contact. So I feel grateful for that, that at least some technology now is standing in between and substituting, in a sense, for the necessary and required human contact. Because there's nothing like the endorphins that secrete during contentment. However, we know that contentment can be taken with us. In other words, if it is well established in our own consciousness, then that contentment can not only travel with us, but radiate it and help others. And I think that that contentment, to me, I think about meditation, Sachin, as the first and last medicine, which is the way in which we can realize how our decisions have gone away from our best interest, our best spiritual interest, and how we can easily reset back to a neutral norm, a witnessing awareness, an acceptance of things as they are, so that we can remain in love.
That is such a beautiful way of putting it. So basically, meditation is the best way to realize how our decisions have gone away from our best spiritual interests and how we can reset in a neutral norm and witnessing awareness and acceptance of things as they are, so we are still in love.
I think it's all within us. You see, do we
Yeah.
need outer practices? Or this winter time is telling us to leave aside fancy tools and accoutrements and attachments and outer tendrils, and really assuming a stance that everything exists within. So I've come to believe this, that everything exists within each and every person, that we have our own resources to right ourselves, to supply ourselves, to support ourselves, to heal ourselves, all within our inner awareness. And that is a key. So meditation is more at this time, right? Sun is less. So we're craving the sun. We need that inner light. So we're craving to sit at the third eye, be in the light, because otherwise it may not appear outwardly. But I am one of those that have had the seasonal affective disorder past, because now I know in winter here at our latitudes, whenever the sun is shining, just leave aside the other tasks and go out and enjoy the sun. Let the eyes drink in those beautiful photons, those light particles that are going to transform everything.
You know, it's this is what a multimedia artist said to me, and I was blown away because they're like, I don't like to wear glasses when I go outside. I like to be with my eyes and look at the sun because I'm taking in these natural photons of energy of it. And I thought for a second, wait a minute, I'm going to burn my eyes. But then I thought about it. It's true. During colder seasons, we need to look at the sun. And in regards to how important it is, as you said, to spend more time within your own light during the colder seasons when the sun isn't there, but access it, and how meditation and this set course of mindfulness is so essential to take time out from our work, our duty, which is important, but I think like the dharma being our duty, which is giving duty to our own personal health. And I am seeing challenges when I work with clients, as I work as an Ayurvedic wellness practitioner, where clients will be like, I don't have time to walk out in nature. I don't really do that. I am meditating. So what's wrong with me? And I'm starting to feel that even if people are meditating, there's still a balance required for the whole onset of the health, the stress, emotions, work, lifestyle. We all have our own diseases, the physical, mental, internal, external, that we have to guide by. But I want to know from you, if when you hear all that coming from your clients, what's the first thing that you onset will tell them for themselves, to prepare themselves to deal with all their stuff
Mhm.
and to work with it? Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful question. I always think the first important consideration is the listening. Usually, I start with an individual client with a blank page. I don't have a form, it's just a habit that I took up years ago. And it helps me to clear my mind from any preconceived idea, and then we go into the interview. So everything about the person is already indicating their prakriti and vikruti, which is our interest in Ayurveda practice. Clinical practice is to help uh, find and help to support the person back to their own personal balance. So, yes, identifying what is their prakriti vikruti, because then we'll know what is their baseline, their prakriti, their constitutional nature, their essence from forever, since this was their soul that precipitated the actual body. This is the Vedic concept.
Yes.
Then, through that incarnation, as time passes and comes to now, that vikruti, that current situation, current state of the dosha, and how to ask them to merge again, how to remember. This is the Ayurveda concept, that each cell has a memory and it can remember, it knows. That's why I've observed that truly all the answers do lie within us. Do we need an expert? We can have help and support, but truly it's an inner realization process. And yes, therefore, meditation can become first and foremost, because these are almost always psychospiritual disturbances that begin with the sattva, rajas, and tamas of the mind, and then precipitate later into symptoms through the dhatu system that you were mentioning earlier. These beautiful 7 tissue levels that are precipitated in order, most gross to most refined, the reproductive system, the most protected. So, in that journey of daily living, we do need to consider as well the food. And food now needs to change. It needs to be warm, oily, soupy, local, fresh cooked, simple,
Yeah,
having
definitely.
6 tastes.
Definitely. Now, when you bring up the 6 tastes, and if you think of someone, say, living in Canada, I know that Dr. Vasan Lad loves talking about the tastes. For those who don't know, Dr. Vasan Lad, he's an elder in the Ayurveda community, resides in California, in America, with a great institution for teaching Ayurveda. But it's the 6 tastes. When we look at a culinary, when we look at our kitchen and we're like, okay, I'm going to make myself some food today, and I'm making a Western diet. So I'm making meat, potatoes, salad. How can I employ in the 6 tastes to this? And I know for myself, I think of, well, we can maybe take ginger, turmeric, we can make some mango chutneys. Any tips for the layman people who are being more simple based food, where they can, how they could employ those 6 tastes into their foods?
Yeah, well, as soon as we ask this question, how can I incorporate the 6 tastes into my diet for a perfect balance of chemistry, and satisfaction also, then right away we're really putting into question this meat, potato, salad model. Because the salad may be iceberg lettuce with a packaged dressing, flown in from Mexico, the meat may be local, but we know from any superficial study of food that the plant-based program does come up as superior. Now, when I started my study of this back in my 20s, so that's over 50 years ago now, uh, it was already known that the plant-based program was superior. So when we ask even the simplest questions about food and nutrition, diet, now we'll start to question that this model, no, does not have the six tastes, nor is it plant-based. Not that certain animal foods may be helpful in certain circumstances, and Ayurveda does talk about when meats may be suitable for the person. There may be a need for animal food,
Yeah,
but not on a regular basis, certainly not on a daily basis. So we have
right.
to see, how did we become acculturalized to having meat or animal products every single day, maybe even at each meal? So this person, through cause and effect, they have not been told the dangers of that. The effects of that will be um, the the deadly diseases, heart attacks, cardiac disease, cancerous changes, of course, diabetes. These are the normal outcomes from such a diet. So in formulating even an introductory question about it, then let us look at a much broader range of plant-based foods and see what is suitable for your digestion, your climate, your budget, your preferences.
I think that's a great way to enter into that conversation because I think the fundamental thing we can say is plant-based foods are an excellent integration into a fall winter diet because it's less harder on your metabolic rate, processing of those foods, lower shorter seasons, how our metabolism is getting affected by the sun rising and when it's at its highest time to process heavier foods. When you talk about meat-based diets and why have they been so used, and I know we could spend so much time talking about this, but for those who understand who are from a yoga practice and Ayurveda practice, we talk about the gunas, and I think about a rajasic quality of nature of food. Now, meat is definitely needed for some areas. The Chakra Samhita even talks about that too. But I kind of feel, and I want to know what you think, if meat is an energy that's powerful and grounding, and it's definitely needed in cultures, but it's been so emphasized on, which has created diseases. So there's an imbalance where we have food manufacturing, which relies on the production to create economy. Capitalism comes into play. So there's commercially farmed practices of meat, and then it's employed more. We're trying, we're going on that. So I have a feeling that all this really entails from this quality of forcefulness, almost like social media. We're always going on a screen, looking at something. We're indulging in meat, which has a very powerful quality when it's induced in the body, this energy. And then we look at, say, alcohol or sugars, things that give us that quality. And I just wanted to bring that out there because I agree with you. And for our viewers out there who do consume meat, I feel that there should also be respect and a fine balance to how we can help guide people on their path to respecting and eating those foods such as meats, but then also an employment of plant-based diets integrated into their diets, because there's no joke that we can see how obesity rates, how it's having an effect on people, especially in their older years and younger years, I want to add. So
Yes. Now, with meat itself, the dravya gunya of meat, the properties of meat, of course, it's heavy, dense. So it has that result in the body and mind. There can be a heaviness, a density. Then there can be also the circumstances of the harvest of the food substance. How much was the animal, afraid at the time, and how much is that adrenaline coursing through the veins at the time?
yeah,
So we have to surmise, but if we see Alberta, yes, having been traditionally a beef-based economy, oil-based economy, that truly the future is brightest for Alberta in Canada because of the opportunities to transition farms from one substance to a multitude of more beneficial, more sustainable uh, food substances and food choices. Now, back in, when was it? The 80s, perhaps, there was a book from John Robbins called Diet for a New America, and it delineated the cost of raising a pound of beef protein as compared to a pound of plant-based protein. And the cost at that time, long time back, was about, I think, about 7 times the amount. Tremendous, um, you know, any economist in their right mind will say, look, go for the sustainable crop, right? Think of the long term. Don't think of your short generation, one generation at a time. Think about this as custodians of the land and the potential for the land. So agriculture is a great place of innovation as long as the Vedic principles, basic principles of biodynamic gardening, organic gardening, mass composting, for example, then we can be not only sustainable, but sensible for future generations with such an array of plant crops that can satisfy and then don't have the same carbon footprint. So I think there's nothing but, um, nothing but light on the horizon of Alberta, not only for sustainable energy industries. That's not our purpose of this interview, but it came up, so it's worth
But it
mentioning.
is one because, yeah.
Because really, why are we adapting to a seasonal routine going from fall to winter? So that our mind remains healthy, our body remains healthy, and in the case of industrial activities, then the planetary factors, environmental factors also. And
Agreed.
at the end of the day, the soul can be satisfied that the livelihood has been made successfully by sustainable activities and not by destructive activities, mining, forestry, that do not have a legal requirement to restore their territories.
I think that is such a good thing to bring up. And I know we're not getting into politics here, but the fact that it's true, Alberta being a meat-based and a non-renewable resource-based economy, and someone from British Columbia looking in, it looks a little bit funny sometimes. You see how in Alberta we are producing here, and it's I really pray, and I feel that it's true. Biodynamic gardening. It's a time for Alberta to create new renewable resources and growing more plant-based proteins. On the note of plant-based proteins, when we look at things like Beyond Meat burgers versus making your own meat burgers at home, I feel is such an important thing because if we're just looking at eating a Beyond Meat burger, which tastes like beef, but it's not beef, and it takes so much more time and energy just to make that and to satisfy someone who is eating that and trying to transition off, which is a good thing. I also feel that there's a huge importance of transitioning people to making their own food at home, aside from buying food outside commercially. And
There's a tremendously important mention of this must be in this discussion of change of season, because yes,
yes,
if we've bought it frozen, packaged, no, surely the life force is not at all equal to what you will prepare at home fresh that day.
definitely.
So yeah, we don't want to be freezing items that are otherwise, best to use fresh. Uh, and the number of creative options is just endless. But we do have to understand the basic principles of Ayurveda food combining. Perhaps the most important principle of Ayurveda food combining will be to take fruits and fruit juices separately from other foods. So if you haven't been implementing this in summer, then at least now for winter, take any fruits, little jam, little any fruits entirely separately from other foods. There are a couple of exceptions, but in general, uh, the fruits taken with other foods will cause indigestion and steal away the enjoyment of the winter.
Definitely. I'm really happy you brought up that. So if we're looking at, you're going to have foods separate your fruit juices, etc., from having those with meals because it's going to affect your digestion. On the note of digestion in this time, I wanted to talk about emotions and mental health. Now, we just had a full moon and a blue moon, which is pretty powerful. And I think a lot of people are feeling the effect of it. Now, when we look at a seasonal transition of going right into fall into winter with this powerful time that was, veil was open, pretty open, and people were feeling definitely, there's things happening in the world as well. I consider talking about the influences of the moon and the sun of Surya and Punam, the moon, in regards to how emotions transition with the cycle of the moon and how we felt that. And a lot of people, I believe, were feeling that during just just on Halloween, actually, when it happened.
Yeah, so this period between the full moon, Saturday, day before yesterday, and now the period coming up to the solstice, winter solstice on 22nd of December. So now this introversion moving from outward to inward by the 21st, 22nd or so, really that is time for indoor celebrations. I know we're used to outward gatherings and parties and so forth, but this year we've been given a special gift to be able to remain indoors, remain separate, remain inwardly focused, introspectively focused, and that will bring more refreshment, more alignment than just about anything. Of course, our food has to adapt too, so that we can choose our six tastes from wherever we live. What are the local substances and spices and herbs and so forth that can be used? And yes, the idea then is to adapt to change so that life continues, thriving continues, choice continues. So, freedom and contentment are considered very important aspects of health in the Ayurveda model.
I love how you bring that up. Freedom and contentment are some of the biggest parallels of that. In regards to this time when we will be coming to like the new solstice, where it's a good time and a special gift to remain indoors, which you've been given, and to remain separate, remain more introspectively focused, I think are really refreshing keys to alignment. Now, one thing with that for our younger viewers listening, and even for all people, people are finding it very difficult, and sometimes that's causing some problems in the world right now. And in regards to meditation, going more inward, I've been finding that a lot of people are talking to me about their challenge to stay with themselves. And due to staying with themselves, we're finding substance abuse is unparalleledly exceeding right now. And device usage has been getting huge because now that we're no longer to be outward in the world, we're relying more on our screens, the social media. I've seen what people are doing around the world. I'm reminded of ego. I'm reminded of comparison, of seeing things continually. And when you talk about how important it is to have this gift, Jaisri, I really wish there's a way that we can convey to people how important it is to do personal work and have a spiritual practice to go inward, so they can find that amount of strength and courage within themselves. So depression, mental health, feeling bad about oneself, going there is in a sense eliminated, and we have a stronger society of healthy people, young people, elderly people, families. So we can be role models to each other during this time now. Yeah.
Yeah, very beautifully said. And you see, it's quite true that as we approach these inward looking times, then we see what's there. And what's there many times is problematic. It's addiction, it's depression, it's sadness, it's isolation, it's serious life-threatening uh, conditions. And they do need our full health, our full attention to their wellness, health, and well-being. When we focus on the solution, now we have changed our obsession. Now we're no longer focusing on the problem, we're focusing on the solution. The meditation does hold that principle that each of us does know are the answers to our own question. If we quiet our mind sufficiently, we will know that answer that is within, whether we're breathing from the right, affirmative, breathing from the left, negative, not yet, wait, take more information into account before deciding. So when we notice these omens within our own body, when we notice our psychological health, digestive health, for me, honestly, in clinical practice, I notice these depressions very related to sleep. Sleep disorder, I feel, is at the root of many other types of psychological disorders, be it social anxiety disorder, bipolar disease. I believe that the normal serotonin, melatonin rhythms are disturbed and have to be restored. So meditation is truly the best. Every evening at the same time, wind down 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, fall asleep naturally, wake up naturally, reestablish that nighttime sleep. Meditation at night is for resolving the unresolved issues of the day or up till now. Then the morning meditation is for intention, for creating an emission, an intention for the day, a spiritual intention. So these two bookends of the day, of food, of course, in between, that's very important. But the morning meditation, getting up early, many mental health issues dissolve by themselves when we focus on the solution.
I love how you said that, how sleeping disorders are huge and important, and how meditations starting in the morning to night are part of that. And I think one thing I might have to have another interview with you on, and we can actually guide some people through meditations, because I really feel with all this time available, with maybe lockdowns happening, people actually getting money from the government, we might be finding that there's an imbalance. Because I wish that if everyone got money from the government due to the one protocols, you got to wake up early and you have to sleep at a certain time. Because I feel that when we're going to colder, darker seasons, people want to stay up more. And I'm going to make it my goal to push that out to people on sleep, because you're right, sleep is essential.
Get to bed early. That allows you to get up early. This morning I was up by 5, watching the moon set in the west before the sunrise came up in the east. So it was a lovely, lovely time of the morning. It felt like a lovely transition between yesterday and today. In other words, tomorrow. So this continuum right now, yes, it's a very special time where, if we are dedicating to introspection according to the seasonal imperative, I should say, there is a tremendous benefit in being in alignment with that seasonal adjustment in that particular way. More dividends will come from that than from probably any other single investment.
I love how we can end this conversation off by talking about how these dividends will help you out more by actually investing in your health, no matter. So to give a wrap up, this interview here with Jaisri Lambert, who's an Ayurvedic doctor in Vancouver, BC, was to do with Ayurveda and the fall transition of mental health and hygiene. I think we went through some really good topics here about winter care, skin, eye gazing, eye health, oil, how it's excellent for your health, endorphins, the change of seasons, the building blocks of the body, um, certain kinds of diets, plant-based to meat-based, a time for change, and most importantly, mental health, our moon cycles. I just want to say, Jaisri, thank you so much for your time today. I think this has been a really well-rounded discussion around fall transition and mental health. Thank you so much for your time. And if anybody wants to hear Namaste, if anyone's looking to find out more about Jaisri, you can find Jaisri online at ayurveda-seminars.com, or you can go to Facebook and go to Jaisri Lambert, and also on Instagram, I believe, too.
Not officially,
Not
but
officially,
I've heard
okay.
there's a couple of posts, but
Okay, cool. Well, I'll make sure on my Instagram and Facebook, everybody will have access to reaching out to Jaish if they need to. She's also an Ayurvedic practitioner doing online consultations, I believe, right now. So those are available, and you can get those set up if you want to speak to her about that. Thank you so much, Jaisri, for all of your knowledge, your time, and your wisdom as an elder out there, and especially during this time. And I just want to say namaste and thank you.
I very much appreciate your initiative in this, Sachin, and the work that you do with Native youth in Calgary and with Ayurveda. Bless you.
See, okay, thank you.